I'm Tony Esselin.
And I'm Amy Bernard.
And we are here to help make it make sense.
This is the podcast that takes complicated science and breaks it down into easy to understand language.
So buckle up, buttercups. You are in for a bumpy ride. Yes, we are back and looking forward to talking about something else today.
Yeah, I think we're going to embark upon a different virus than we have been talking about for what is it, 6 months now?
7 months, actually.
7 months.
In 7 months, talking about COVID-19 and all of the things. Now we are faced with a couple of other threats. And so we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and giving the information that we need to as it's coming out. So we wanted to get started with that. I have to say, on the record, you can decide if you want me to pull this out if you want me to. But I got a request to talk about polio next.
So, you know what? I think polio should be next, actually.
Yes. So we're gonna talk about polio next.
Today
we are going to talk about monkeypox because everyone is talking about monkeypox.
Yep.
And I got throttled with questions by friends and family with regard to monkeypox. So this is awesome. We have a lot to talk about today. And Amy and I are going to do our thing where we go back and forth. But I wanted to start this with one question that I got because it's something that I have to be honest, I don't believe that we're representing it well in the way that it's being spoken about. And the first question that I wanted to go over today is, why are people saying that only gay men are getting it, right? This is a question I've gotten in different forms. You hear it in the media, and it's come to me in multiple different ways. And I want to say very clearly, we should not be saying this. This is not something that should be said, okay? While it may make some folks feel safer to assume that it is going to affect a smaller community that they are likely not a part of. And since this community is already stigmatized, it demonstrates that there is a lack of understanding about how saying this can actually risk increasing the barriers faced by a community of gay men. And so while it is important to know what conditions and what diseases are affecting whom, right? So that we can target our strategies to effectively protect our communities and populations, we need to do a way better job, taking into consideration the social contexts of that information so we do not further stigmatize, condemn, disparage already marginalized or made to feel like they are insignificant populations, right? So I want to give an example from my global health work, right? So there was, in the work that I was doing in global health, we learned that a certain population of people participated in a particular hygiene practice that actually made them more susceptible or more at risk to a certain type of cancer. And I say this to say that all tight-knit communities have customs and standards that distinguish them or that may be actually unique from other communities, and they have customs and norms that make them different, right? Illnesses can hit a community through the kind of food that they eat, right? The kind of clothes that they wear, the hygiene they practice, their access to safe housing, the kinds of jobs that they do, and the healthcare they have access to, and even the way that they socialize. And so if monkeypox had, for example, hit a kindergarten class of children, right, first because of an infected guinea pig that somebody got from, let's say, Australia, right? Basically, then anyone who came in contact with children would be at risk of getting monkeypox, right? That's the way that it would work. Anybody who's around children would then be at risk of getting it, right? And so monkeypox may primarily be, for the time being, in the gay community because folks that are gay are around folks that are gay, right? But it doesn't mean at all that other folks who are not gay are not going to get it, and all folks that are gay are going to get it, right? That's not what that means. And so for anyone who is in intimate contact, I think it's really important to just focus the conversation less on sexual orientation and more on mode of transmission, right? Mode of transmission. So for anyone who is in intimate contact, not necessarily sexual, but especially if sexual, with different kinds of people, different people, your risk is higher than someone who's chilling at their house, not interacting with anybody, right? So it is not a gay disease. It is not a disease of gay people. We have to stop saying that. It is a disease that is transmitted through close personal contact. And we should say that instead of men who have sex with men, or men who are bisexual or trans or non-binary. Sexual orientation has nothing to do with how a condition is going to target a particular community. And so I think it's just important to just put that to bed as of now.
I agree with you. I was wondering if, yeah, absolutely. I was wondering if maybe we should, I know we have several questions that we got from friends and family. I was wondering if we should then next skip to the how it spread.
Sure.
Does that, since we want to kind of just dispel the whole it's only in gay communities kind of thing?
Yeah, let's do it. That's
okay,
great.
Cool.
That's great. We have a bunch of questions, so
yeah,
we're gonna hop around.
We will not have a lack of questions.
That's right. That's right.
Just because we're skipping ahead doesn't mean we're going to delete those in between.
That's right. That's right.
So as far as how it is spread, it is close personal contact, and we found that it's most frequently through skin to skin contact. So that's kind of the big piece here. So when they were finding this monkeypox in gay men, it was with gay men that were in close personal, maybe intimate contact with other gay men that had monkeypox, but that doesn't mean it's the only population it spreads in.
Right.
So like, just to give a fictitious example, probably there are gay men who are in close contact with their family members or parents, moms, dads, siblings. That would potentially be another source of getting monkeypox, if you're just close personal contact. So just because if you're gay doesn't mean you're going to be more likely to get monkeypox. And if anyone can spread it to siblings, parents, anyone who's in close personal contact. So there are probably a lot of gay men who have close personal contact with moms and dads and siblings, and those people would also be at risk, but also anyone who's not gay that has monkeypox, who's in close personal contact with anyone else, can spread it, to anyone. So it's that skin on skin kind of close personal intimate contact. We also know that it can spread from pregnant mom to fetus. So we call that, the fancy word for that is vertical transmission. However, that just means from pregnant mom to unborn child. So it can spread that way as well. I have read about respiratory secretions is one way that they think it's possible for it to spread. But one thing that I think Dr. Tony will probably also agree with is that we still have more to learn. And the other thing about monkeypox virus is that the monkeypox virus that we traditionally studied like years and years ago, this one seems to be similar, but a little bit different and unique in the sense that it's spreading from human to human a little bit more readily than they've seen in the past. So that just means that while we have some information about monkeypox in the past, we have a lot of things that we need to learn for monkeypox right now in the present. And then that will also help us understand monkeypox in the future. But I think the main thing we need to keep in mind is that it's close personal contact, often skin to skin. It could be from hugging, especially if someone has like a rash and your skin maybe has a cut or a scratch and you would touch that. Could be massaging for extended periods of time. kissing, prolonged like face-to-face contact potentially. Something I've read too that is potential would be if you have like bed sheets or towels that were used by a person that has monkeypox, and maybe some of the infectious particles had been transferred to those sheets or bedding or towels, and before they were washed, that's a possibility. I don't know that that's 100% you'll become infected, but we know that that's one thing you should just be aware of, right? And then obviously that close skin on skin personal contact could happen during sexual contact, although we're not saying this is sexually transmitted.
That's right.
We're saying it's skin to skin, close personal or intimate contact. So Dr. Tony, is that what you?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, they basically, one of the questions so that we could just answer it clearly, that we received was, is this a sexually transmitted infection? The answer is no. It is not at the moment. It is close personal contact. There are ongoing studies at the moment to see whether or not it actually can be passed in semen, vaginal secretions, vaginal fluids, that kind of thing. But right now, as of now, we're not calling it a sexually transmitted infection, which means that because of the act of sex and exchange of fluids, that's what's going to get you infected. It's just touching, right? Like you could just get your hand on somebody's shoulder that has monkeypox lesions on it, and you hang in there for a little bit, and you can get it that way, right? Like Dr. Amy was saying, that like a lot of questions that we've gotten about, can you get it from a bed sheet? We're saying it's not impossible. It's not common though, right? And it's still under investigation. We're worried about it because of the fact that we're going back to how viruses actually live. How do they die, right? And viruses love warm, wet, moist areas to kind of go ahead and propagate, right? And if it's or cool, rather, not really warm, but like cool, moist, right? Areas that are soft, right? They enjoy those areas. Whereas if it's in the sunlight, it's a hard surface, it's UV light, for example, which is coming from the sun, that type of thing, it's not going to live very long, right? Those are the things that can kind of kill viruses, right? So because we're not 100% sure, we're letting you know to express some caution, right? Express some caution when you're potentially in contact with somebody who may have a rash, and who may have been in contact with somebody with monkeypox. You don't want to share their bed linens or their towels and those types of things, right? And so, yeah, that's what we'll probably have some more questions as we go through the questions that we've received. But for the most part, that's what I understand so far. Now, again, like we said in the COVID podcast, we are still learning about monkeypox, right? So we are still learning about this version of monkeypox, that Dr. Amy did say that is a little bit different than the one that has been infecting folks and animals actually in the past. And so, we've
got a lot to learn as far as like how long do viruses last on surfaces and what types of surfaces. It depends on the virus. Different viruses have different, what we call hardiness, or the ability to like remain infective or be able to infect you once they've landed on a surface. So some viruses don't last for very long on surfaces, and others last for hours or maybe days. It just depends on the virus. So the reason why we're saying be careful with used bed sheets or linens and things like that, or clothes even. And you should never exchange underwear. Let's just have that one just wiped off.
Let's just say that out loud.
Let's just check that off the list. Don't ever, borrow someone's used underwear. I'm just going to put it out there.
Just put it out there.
Especially for like the 4 and 5-year-olds listening here.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, we just want you to be careful, because we think that that's a possibility of how you could get it. And like we said earlier, we're learning more, but just to, just be careful, be as careful as possible, because different viruses have different lengths of time that they will live on surfaces. And we just want to be overly abundantly cautious.
That's right.
With this one.
And the other thing I wanted to clarify with you, Dr. Amy, is that like viruses can be detected on surfaces. That doesn't necessarily mean they can be infective. It depends. It just depends, right? So they can be out there chilling on a countertop, let's just say, for example, but it can't do anything to you because the fact that it's outside of a cell, for example, is just not going to allow it to be infective.
Viruses. Would
you say that?
It depends. It depends.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So having taught virology, semester-long virology course in the background, I got a lot going in that I'm not gonna. There's more than anybody here would want to hear.
Oh, you don't have a PowerPoint today?
Wait, I have no PowerPoints today. I know, bummer. But it depends on the virus and for length of time, like how long they can live. But what I will tell you is that viruses will not make more virus unless they're in a cell. So if it's just a bunch of viral particles on a surface, it's less, sometimes they would be less likely to infect. Now it just depends on if they've started to like dry out. Because some of those viruses actually do, viral particles will dry out, and once that happens, they can't get in. It's like they're all shrivelly and old looking, and they just they can't get in. But sometimes they can. So it really just depends. And I think with monkeypox, just out of sheer like abundance of caution, just but we're not saying wipe down all your stuff. Right, like don't wear that hazmat suit, leave that in the closet. I mean, I don't know, I have mine, I just had mine dry cleaned.
Oh no, oh my god.
Just kidding.
Oh my god.
But like, sanitize your hands, wash your hands. Just be careful.
That's right.
Yeah, but it does depend on the virus. With this one, I'll say that if bed sheets, towels, whatever, clothes, things that have been used, just be careful. Just don't use those things if you think that somebody is infected or there's a high potential for infection.
That's right. That's right. I like that. All right, let's take it from the top here.
Ooh, we're going back to the top.
Let's go back to the top. What kind of virus is this, Dr. Amy?
Well, now that you asked, I do not have a PowerPoint for you, but it's a DNA virus, and it's a pox virus.
A pox on your head.
Which you probably knew because it's called monkeypox. These pox viruses are usually pretty big, and for whatever reason, they tend to be like brick shaped. So you can kind of have like that brick shape in your head. This one, like us, is double-stranded DNA. So our genome, our instructions are double-stranded DNA. And this pox virus, and most of these pox viruses are double-stranded DNA. Keeping in mind that SARS-CoV-2, which we, have been in love with talking about for the last 7 months, is an RNA virus. So that's different. These guys are really kind of cool. What they do is they get into the cell, the host cell, and they set up shop in the host cell. They make these little viral replication factories inside like this. Remember we talked about before how the cells have like a center that I call the nucleus, but it's kind of like the city hub.
Yeah.
And then
that was podcasts ago.
Like the city, and then the outer portion of the cell outside that nucleus or city hub is like the suburbs, They set up shop. They make factories, viral factories in the suburbs. I know. And you know how they make them? They actually dismantle parts of our own cells, like these little organelles and things that are like busy making proteins and stuff for us, for our body, they take them apart. They dismantle them to make like a factory so that they look hidden.
Oh, look at them. So smart.
I know. It's a
So
camouflaged factory inside the cell that makes more viral particles. And that's how they just go to town making more viral particles and then release them. So it's a DNA virus that sets up a viral particle factory inside our own cells and just like steals all the materials. It's like if you were to break into a construction site and then build your own mini house in the plot using the materials that you found on the construction site.
rude. It's so rude. Oh my
It's
God.
so rude.
So
But they
rude.
get away with it. And
They
then
do.
even worse, they like, you know, bust down the fencing and everything when they leave.
Terrible.
I know. So does that help?
Yeah, that definitely helps.
I think there was a question too about mutation.
Well, that's what I was going to say was
Okay.
that in our last podcast,
Yep.
you did an amazing explanation about the difference between DNA and RNA viruses and spent
Yep.
a lot of time talking about how RNA viruses like COVID are sloppy.
Yeah.
And they don't have spell check, but DNA viruses are a little bit more anal retentive.
Yeah.
And they're a little bit more careful. And my understanding of monkeypox, so just to go back a little bit, monkeypox has been here for decades, maybe centuries. I don't know. It's been. This is not a new virus at all.
Right.
It was endemic in certain places in Africa, but mostly it was like animal transmission. And if a human got it, it's because they were in contact with an animal that was infected, whether they ate it or touched it or handled it or whatever, was how they were able to get that infection. And there wasn't really human to human transmission. And now it mutated, is my understanding.
Yeah.
And it is now able to be passed from human to human. So what gives, Dr. Amy?
So when I was telling you about the RNA viruses being more sloppy and having no spell check, that's totally true.
Okay.
DNA viruses, though, can mutate. It's not like they are not able to do that. It's just that they are a little bit more, fastidious. They're a little bit more like they have the spell check, right? They're going to be a little bit more careful. However, when you have DNA viruses, they can mutate. They have that capability. They're less likely. It doesn't mean that it's impossible or that it doesn't happen, because the more infected living things you have, and I'm saying living things because it's not just humans, it's like rodents.
Right.
These monkeypox virus, they found it in a monkey, and that's why they named it that. But I actually think the reservoir is like rodents or rats.
Yes, that's right.
Right. So I know. So, and I think that it even goes into multiple animals beyond rodents, but the more living things that you have infected with a virus, the more opportunity there is for that virus to potentially change or mutate. So what likely happened is there may be some reservoir. So some reservoir is like like just a number of rare reservoirs where you keep like all your water.
Yeah. Well,
like a well. So you might have like a reservoir, like a group of rodents that happen to be harboring the virus. They're living their life. They're getting more and more rodents infected. So the more kind of like supply of virus in these rodents, the more it passes on, the easier and more likely it is for it to change or mutate. So that's probably what happened, is that this virus just continued to live inside and change over time inside these rodents. And for whatever reason, a human had contact with one of these animal reservoirs, whether it was a rat or a mouse or guinea pig, hamster, who knows what. I don't think we've narrowed it down to what was the exact exchange. There was likely the monkeypox virus had changed just enough to transfer to that human, to infect the human, and then that human, upon becoming infected, then transferred it to another human. And that's the difference here, is it seems like the monkeypox in this present day is easier moving from human to human than we've seen in the past.
That's right.
In the past, from what I've read, it looks like it was more like animal to human,
right?
But not necessarily human to human. So there's That's something right. about this version that has changed just enough. Some little random mutation that probably happened in some rat somewhere that now has infected a human, and that is now passing from human to human. And that's the difference with this monkeypox present day compared to before, is that it seems like it's transmitting a little bit easier from human to human. So what I will say, though, is that this has been endemic in just some small parts of Africa in the past. And that's where we've kind of seen it stay for the most part. It's probably, and the last outbreak we had was years and like decades ago. It's probably just continued to live in like rodent populations that whole time. And probably over time, it's just changed a little tiny bit. Let's say each year, let's say just as an example, let's say it picks up one change each year. Well, if that's 10, 20 years,
right,
it changed just enough,
right,
to get into humans.
Got it.
Right?
So it's not that they don't change. They just don't change as often as RNA viruses.
Right. Or as quickly, it seems. So because we've seen that kind of like several decades between these kind of outbreaks, it leads me to believe that there were probably small changes over time that accumulated and just made it to be like, now it's good at going from human to human. And that's where we're at right now.
That's right. Well, if that's the case, then one of the other questions I got, can it be a problem when my kid goes back to school?
Oh, no, not at all, because kids don't ever lick things or put things in their mouth. They don't ever cough on each other. I mean, it's probably fine. Oh, I can't hear you. Oh, wait, now I can.
Goodness. I was like, oh my God, is she saying that this is not a problem with kids? And then meanwhile, I'm ready for my speech of how, like, kids love to lick.
Sorry to mess with you.
And oh my God. So the answer to the question is, goodness gracious. The answer to the question is, if we do not get a handle on it, yes, it can be a problem when your child goes back to school. Yes, kids just, oh my God. I probably have said this 1,000 times in the other podcast, but like Anthony will find whatever is disgusting and gross and figure out a way to touch it and then rub his nose. It's just like clockwork, And so I'm not making fun of it. I'm kind of making fun of it, but I'm also saying that like it can be serious if we don't get a handle on it. So I think the most important thing at the moment is to be aware of it, right? Now that you're aware, you know how it spreads, and know where your testing centers are, right? Like know where that's at. It's not all over. It's not all over the place right now because we're still trying to figure things out. I won't say more than that. But I'm saying that it is not right now. It has been found in a handful of kids who they've been able to isolate, heal, is my understanding. They didn't get incredibly sick. And those kids were in contact with adults, obviously, who had, gotten infected in some way, shape, or form, right? And so that's just where we are at the moment. So it's very important.
Yeah, I mean, one thing my kids are older, so my perspective is probably not the same as Dr. Tony's, but like when my son was really young, I have twins, boy, girl, and my son loved to touch everything and put everything in his mouth and was like, just freaked me out all the time.
Yeah.
And I would have conversations with him about, you don't have to touch every railing and then put your hand in your mouth. And you
Right.
don't have to like, so I would have conversations. Was it effective? Maybe a little tiny bit, I don't know. So you could potentially try to have like a logical conversation with them. Not sure that
It doesn't work. It doesn't work because I've tried, what is it, 20 years later?
Yeah.
After your kid, I've tried, and he just looks at me like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? But he
Yeah.
has no idea. He's not sitting there and like paranoid like I am, like where am I putting my hand and
Well,
stuff.
they just don't think about it.
They don't think about it.
I'll tell you what, there was one time I love taking them to the zoo. And there was one time where he was walking around, I think he was like 4 or 5, and all of a sudden I looked over. And you know how they have those hand railings like in front of the animals or whatever? He was sucking on it.
I know. Oh my
Oh
God.
my
It's,
God. I thought for sure.
the proximity of the
Yes.
fence in their, like close to their mouth,
It's right there.
right there. So they just go, huh.
I know. And you know what? I went home and I told my husband, I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's going to die in a few days. So we should probably enjoy him right now.
Oh man, they are something else. It's something to watch, I have to tell you. So yes, hopefully that answered your question. I know we didn't assuage any of your fears with that conversation. But the issue is that right now it is not running rampant in children right now.
Right. Right.
And so we have a chance.
Yeah.
We have a chance to make sure that it's not a problem in schools. But if we don't get a handle on it,
Yeah.
then it can be a problem in schools, which is where, petri dishes, see
Right.
our previous podcasts on that.
I also think that some of the schools, at least from what I've read around the Denver area, they're talking about that they'll be wiping things down like at lunchtime and end of the day. And
they should just be doing this anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so they're trying to I think make parents feel like they're going to have their kind of multiple stages of cleaning protocols in place, which I think will be helpful.
Yeah, it'll definitely be helpful. All right. Another question was, can I get vaccinated, and how many vaccines and boosters in total are recommended? So right now in the US, as I understand it, at last reading, there's a limited supply of vaccines. And they are targeting healthcare workers and scientists who actually work with it first, because they're like literally in contact with it, and also sexually active humans, right? Sexually active humans. So my advice to patients would be that if you are single and you are sexually active, this is what I would tell like if somebody came to me and was like, what should I do? If you are single and you are sexually active with more than one partner, then you should look into seeing whether you can get access to the vaccine, is what my advice would be. If you are immunocompromised, then you are at risk for severe disease, and the effectiveness of the vaccine is not that clear in the moment, but you can be eligible for antiviral medication if it actually does happen to you. So in terms of doses, there is a 2-dose series, but my understanding is that the second dose is being rationed. They're holding on to it until they get more of the vaccine in production, and get better of a handle on the virus.
That's unfortunate. I've read that too, because this the Jynneos vaccine, that's the 2-dose. You get your first dose like day 1. And your second dose is 4 weeks later. And they're saying that they're not considering people fully vaccinated until 2 weeks after the second dose. So 6 weeks in to your 2-dose series. So if they're holding on to that second dose, that's interesting.
There's a lot of aggravation, I have to say, in the communities that are talking about this, in the public health spaces that I have heard like podcasts about and scientists talking about, like nobody's really jumping for joy about that. Like everybody's pretty unhappy. But this is the current state. This is where we are. We don't have the supply that we thought we were going to have. This vaccine, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but this vaccine is actually for smallpox, and it's actually they're so similar that it's been shown to be helpful for monkeypox, but now we're still doing ongoing studies and you know, looking at people and keeping track of folks that are getting vaccinated. And so 2-dose series, the one that is out there, the one called Genios, there's an entire fact sheet on this on the CDC website if you're interested on getting that, and we'll link that in the show notes. But this is where we are. This is where we are of whether or not you can get vaccinated.
And we also know from very recent experience that sometimes additional doses are needed down the road. Now, I don't know about this vaccine in particular, and I think this is something that we wouldn't learn until, you know, multiple months or whatever down the road. But, you know, just because we're saying right now it's 2 doses for that Genios, it doesn't mean that, say, a year from now that may not change. It's just that that is current state.
Right.
Agreed. I think it's more likely that this one will stay at 2, but we just want to be open to the possibility that additional doses may be needed as more research and more efficacy and safety, like, is it working, if that data comes back.
That's right.
And then the second, there is another vaccine option that it makes me laugh. It's called like it's ACAM or ACAM 2000, which makes me think of like, I don't know, like some type of equipment or machinery. Like it's the ACAM 2000, the newest vacuum cleaner.
You know, vaccine robot.
Exactly. It's got like some like weird, anyways, that one is a 1 dose, but it has a lot more side effects, and it is not well tolerated in most people, particularly in people that have like a lot of comorbidities, so other issues, like other health issues, as well as people that are like immunocompromised or have weakened immune systems. And the difference, the Genios 2 dose is a shot, like we're used to, like a subcutaneous, like, you know, shot, like we're used to getting vaccines like that. This one is where they do a skin prick. The ACAM 2000 is actually a skin prick, and a pustule will form on your arm.
Like the old school one.
Like the old school, that's exactly right.
Where
you have to be very careful.
People that, I think probably like in the 60s or so, that got vaccinated, you can see a little circle. I know my mom has it.
Well, they stopped it like in 1970 or 71. But that scab that forms from the pustule, from that skin prick, you actually have to be very careful with that, because that could potentially be infective.
That's right.
So you got to be real careful. I remember when I was in grad school, there was a lab that was working with vaccinia virus, like using the vaccinia virus shell to do other stuff. And a couple of the lab members had to get vaccinated, and they wore like big like patches to cover it for like a month, because you don't want anything to come out of that and touch any surface or person.
That's right.
Because it was infective. So it was just, and I was rotating through that lab, and I remember I was like, oh, I don't know. I want that vaccine. It'd be cool. But I ended up picking a different lab, but it was just, so I remember that. So that's the 2 different, and I think like Dr. Tony said, we have limited supply, I think, of either right now, just because we didn't think we were going to need it. Right.
There's other, I'll let you guys listen to other podcasts about why we don't have, the vaccine.
That's,
there's
that's
another
out of our realm a little bit, but we're just letting you know.
Exactly. So other questions that I got, what are the prevention strategies, and what can you do to make sure that you don't get it? And so basics, friends, wash your hands. Avoid touching people who may have a rash as much as possible. I think that COVID taught us to do fist bumping, so that's great. Elbow touches, you know, less handsy now, you know. I think as a society, I think we've just learned to be a little bit more careful. about that. And so it's the basics. That's how you can avoid it, right? Try not to be in close contact with folks that you don't know, without a lot of with no barriers to protection. And so that'll go into another question of, can I go to a comedy club or a movie? Yes, you can, but as long you're fully clothed, right? If you're going naked and everybody there is naked, not safe.
Right.
Not safe.
Agreed.
But if you are fully clothed and you're not kissing or touching random humans, right? And we, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to say we here, suggest that you be masked, right? While we're trying to figure this out. Remember that it's the prolonged contact that puts you at risk, right? The prolonged close contact that gets you at risk. So if it's on a doorknob and you have a habit of washing your hands after you touch a doorknob, you should be fine.
Right.
Anything to add there, Dr. Aim?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess one thing that, people have asked about, going, just being social again, because I think people are starting to do that, even though we are still in this pandemic, it's, people are, going back to doing a lot of social things. Just if it's very crowded, if it's indoors, I'm probably wearing my mask anyways because of COVID.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be a good idea. Also, just add to that, you're now protecting yourself from monkeypox too.
Agreed. Agreed. My mask is just gonna stay on. That's where
Yep.
All right. I got a very interesting question that came up that stated, this is coming from friends and family. But one question that came up was that they were watching the news and trying to understand why monkeypox is affecting predominantly Black people in states like Georgia, and in particular Atlanta, and that it's disproportionately affecting Black people. It's also affecting like the Latino community, obviously. And the way I'm going to answer that is, unfortunately, as usual, health conditions run through communities with large health disparities in care.
Yep.
We see this all the time. I'm actually not surprised. I think when I got this question, I was just like, of course it is, right? This is how infectious diseases work. This is how health conditions work, unfortunately. And lack of access to care, mistrust in the system, medical racism, is just going to do the same stuff that we saw HIV do, we saw COVID do, just to name the ones that we know about pretty well. And so when we actually achieve health equity, which includes the distribution of resources according to need, then we're going to see different patterns. But until then, Black people, immigrants, other marginalized groups are going to bear the brunt of public health emergencies. And so that's the way I would answer that.
Yeah. I think that that's a really good question, because it's not that monkeypox is going to spread more readily between, people of color versus, white people. It's health disparities. Like it can infect anyone of any color, it does not matter. It is monkeypox is not
sitting back and being like, let me find a gay person, or let me find a Black person and infect. It's not that. It's just the fact that, like, our healthcare system is
It'll infect, monkeypox will infect anyone. It just happens to be that in certain communities that have all these inequities, sadly, that are still there.
That's right.
It's gonna be a little bit more rampant in those communities. But monkeypox doesn't care. It'll infect anyone.
Sure doesn't. Can you get monkeypox by touching surfaces that a contacted person touched, or an infected person, touched, and then you touched your face, your mouth, your nose, and where is it mostly contained and contracted? I think we touched on this a little bit, but in summary, again, we are still trying to understand it. We do understand that it can hang out in on surfaces. I think I saw something up to 15 days. I saw another one that said up to 20 days.
Oh my.
That it can hang out on surfaces. But again, infectivity is unknown. Whether if on day 14, can it still infect you if it's on a counter? We just don't know. And so again, hard surfaces like your boxes, that are coming to you from, getting shipped to you, and your mail, it should be fine. I think
Yeah.
a good practice would be, again, I think we said it at the beginning, we'll say it again. A good practice is just sanitize your hands. Like every time I touch something,
Mhm.
I have a sanitizer everywhere. I just sanitize my hands. I touch my mail, I sanitize my hands. I touch money, I sanitize my hands.
Mhm.
I'm always thinking
Yeah.
about like, where am I putting my hands? And
Yeah.
like, I like to touch my face. So because I know I like to touch my face, I try my best to, like,
Yeah.
before I touch my face, if I've touched something else that is
Yeah.
not from me,
Mhm.
I will do my best to, I'm not perfect. I will do my best to sanitize. I'm not perfect,
Yeah.
but I do my best to kind of always think about it. So remember that mode of transmission is prolonged contact with an infected person's lesions and respiratory secretions.
Mhm.
And it is not clear, they're actually trying to figure this out. It is not clear if you can find it in the air yet, right? So that freshly coughed pocket of air that we've talked about
Yeah.
still has COVID and flu in it.
Right.
Whether it has monkeypox, we don't know.
Yeah, we're not sure. I think that there's research that's going into that right now, but you know what? Steer clear of those coughed pockets
I mean, those cough
because
pockets,
of COVID and flu anyways.
with COVID and flu, and we're heading into fall, y'all.
I
So
know. Which we know that the flu has recently flipped us the bird because it's been popping up in the summer. So
it's just like we should do a flu one too, by the way.
yeah.
But okay, who catches monkeypox? I think we've covered that. Anyone who comes into
Anybody.
prolonged contact with someone infected with monkeypox is who
Yep.
catches.
Anyone can get it.
Does it create herpes or HIV in your system if you get it? Not at all. Nope. That's not how that works at all.
Mhm.
Can you be more susceptible to other viruses if you have a virus? Sure. Sure, you can be more susceptible, but it's not going to just come out and spontaneously
Right.
occur to you because you get monkeypox, you automatically get
Yeah,
another.
yeah. Some people will, like people will talk about what they call secondary infections, which is that question, like, are you more likely to get infected with a second or third thing if you have monkeypox? The only thing is that, anytime you have like a viral or even bacterial infection, your immune system is starting to work kind of hard to get rid of it. So sometimes that can make you more susceptible just to other stuff coming in and taking advantage of your immune system, kind of already maybe just kind of working hard. And sometimes certain viruses can weaken the immune system. So that's where that comes into play. But there are no viruses that would spontaneously create another type of virus in you, like HIV or herpes. So it wouldn't spontaneously occur. Now you might come into contact with them potentially. There would have to be another contact, but they're not going to spontaneously, arise.
That's right.
But it's a good question though.
Yeah, well, and also there are, like you said, there are a lot of co-infections that occur because of what you were doing, whatever it was that you were doing that put you at risk for it, right? So like if you had prolonged intimate contact with somebody who had HIV and happened to also have monkeypox,
right? Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're gonna get them and herpes, right? Like and syphilis actually, and chlamydia, and like all of these other things, right? That happen that are sexually transmitted, which monkeypox is not, but it's the close personal contact that's going to get you at risk for these sexually transmitted diseases, right? So those are the things to think about. I just to like add to that really quickly too, anybody who has school-age children knows if your child has gotten really sick, like respiratory illness, non-COVID wise, we do these viral panels a lot, and often you'll see more than one viral infection. So you'll see like human metapneumovirus, and you'll see para-influenza virus, and you'll see adenovirus, right? Those poor kids, they go through a lot when they have multiple illnesses, because they're transmitted the same way. And it's not that one created another, it's just that your child was really unlucky, and they shouldn't have licked that doorknob, gosh darn it, and walked into that pocket of freshly coughed air, and they did, you know, and that's just basically what actually happened.
Yeah.
In terms of what symptoms to look out for, flu-like, you know, it always starts with a flu-like, you don't feel good, you're kind of fatigued, you know, maybe you have a cough, maybe you won't, just depends. You feel kind of flu-ish, right? Flu-ish, a word. I'm just created a word.
I think we just made up a word. Yeah.
We're just gonna make up words. But you feel kind of down and out, right? You're feeling worn, under the weather. And then you get a rash.
Yeah.
And then you get a rash.
Is the rash like within, is it like up to 2 weeks? Is that what
I believe so. And it varies on the human, right?
Okay.
It just varies on the person. But I think the most common is within 5 days. If I'm not mistaken, it's most common, but it's not unusual for it to be later or earlier, right? These are just,
and then because you're the MD on the call here, calling Dr. Tony.
Oh
no. Do you know, do most people have similar like trajectory of symptoms? Like, would it be the same in each person, or like with COVID, how like some people are asymptomatic and some people are not? Do we see as much variability or any variability? Do you know?
I think there is variability from what I've seen. There is variability. The cases that I understand have gone from mild rash, some blisters, maybe just on the hand, to like severe, painful, needs to be hospitalized for pain management type of stuff. So they do run the gamut. It is not deadly as far as I know. Have not been any cases, any deaths in the US.
Yeah, I've read that too. Yeah.
There have been no cases, no deaths, but anybody who's like severely ill, you can be hospitalized with it because the pain is so bad of the lesions. Like when they blister, it's the process of the blistering and open pores, and it's just miserable. And it depends on where are the blisters, right? Anybody ever have like, you know, a blister in your mouth? Those things are painful because you've got like a lot of nerve endings there, right? You know, so as opposed to like a blister on your elbow, it's not going to hurt as much as something like in the corner of your mouth. That's gonna be painful because you're opening, you're talking, you're eating, you're kind of always like bothering it, right? So yeah, those are the things to look out for. It's not deadly, but it can also scar, right? So like not everybody will have a scar. So I'm reminded of chickenpox. In the chickenpox world, we are, don't tell anybody, old enough to remember when there wasn't a vaccine for chickenpox, and that folks would just get chickenpox, right? And so like everybody who got chickenpox, there were people who got chickenpox who never scarred, and there were those that got severely scarred from chickenpox, right? So it just depends. It just depends on how it's going to affect you, because everybody's different in that respect.
Yeah. Oh, I had chickenpox.
I had chickenpox pretty bad.
Me too.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
I actually think this is old school stuff, guys. I think I actually had like encephalitis, and my father was like, "You'll be fine." This is old school stuff. They're like, "You'll be fine. Get some Kylamine lotion and some Tylenol. You'll be all right."
Wow.
I'm still here though, y'all. I'm strong.
You made it past that.
I know, right? I mean, I don't know, but I sounded like I was pretty sick from what my mom tells me. I was like, it sounds like something.
I got it when I was I got chickenpox when I was like 15. Which the older you are, the worse.
Yeah, that's right.
It was pretty bad.
Oh, that sucks.
It was everywhere. I was so hard not scratching.
Oh.
That's what makes it scar more, is when you scratch it. But man, they itch so much, which I'm assuming monkeypox would also probably painful, but maybe also a little bit itchy. But you're more likely to scar if you itch at it.
Yeah,
if you scratch at it.
Lesion and you're picking at it. Like anybody who's had eczema and they've had an infection of eczema, like, and you're just like, you can't help it, and it just scars you. You
gotta leave it alone. It's the hardest thing. It's the hardest, the most self-control ever.
Yeah. oh man, but you ever itch something and then you're like, oh, you're just like, this is just so
Yes.
good.
You know, I'm gonna tell you what, during chickenpox, I had some in my scalp. And I'm
Oh
like,
man.
oh yeah, you know what? Those are the ones I'm gonna scratch. I'm like,
We're going to
oh,
town on that because I'm gonna do
totally.
that with my
But
hair.
here's the thing. I was like, probably won't go bald, but if I do, it's not gonna be good. A lot of chickenpox scars in my head, I'm sure. But yeah, that was my rationalization. I'm like, oh yeah. So yeah, you just
this podcast today is off the hook.
I know we're off the rails now.
We're off the rails today.
Rein
So
us back in.
Okay, here we go. Should we be wearing gloves to pump gas and grocery shop? I would say sanitize your hands before and after pumping gas. That's just a practice that I have.
Do that anyways.
Do that anyway. And also go into the store before and after. That's what I do now. I don't think that there's anything else.
Now, Dr. Tony, what if question for you is, what if the person has like scratches or wounds or anything like on their hand, you know, like let's say a cat bite or something, like would you recommend in that case? Or I'm just curious.
I mean, I think it would, like, so let's say you came to me and you were like, hey, I have this cut, should I be worried about? I would say, like, let that sucker heal, cover it, so that make sure that it's healed. Because anything open is susceptible to infection, right?
Yeah,
agreed. And so and actually I want to say that I saw y'all out there with your gloves during COVID. Y'all don't know how to use those gloves. I mean, I watch people I'm like, what are you doing? They have gloves on and they're touching their face.
Yes.
And they're passing along pens and clipboards with the same gloves. Like, that's not how gloves work, friends. No. That's not how gloves work. Like, if you're wearing gloves and you're still touching your face, you're still gonna get whatever's on your glove.
Right. Agreed.
So just because you wear gloves to pump gas, I mean, unless you understand how to remove gloves without touching, which is like something they teach us in medical school.
Right.
How to remove a glove. And actually in the lab, I learned how to do that in the lab too. I did that in the lab as well. But
you just bite at it and
oh, ew. Don't listen to her. She's losing it, you guys. So you just, the proper way to remove gloves is to stick your finger under the glove, right? And
at your wrist.
At your wrist. That's correct. At your wrist. And then you fold it inside out. And then the one that is folded, now that you've got it with your gloved hand. That's what you can take. That's how you can take off the other one. Or maybe I'll do
you turn it inside out. So the stuff on the inside that touched your hand and didn't touch the stuff outside is there. And then you can grab it.
And then you can grab the other one, right?
Otherwise,
but nobody's doing that. Nobody's doing that. I saw somebody yesterday or like the day before at in a healthcare facility who was like masked and gloved, and he did not change those gloves. Those gloves were the same gloves that he used to wipe down his keyboard. Okay. To wipe down the counter. Like, you're not like, you have to take the gloves off. Right. And then you have to take them off in a certain way for them not to like
totally.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that PSA. I got that out of my system, rant over. So does it enter your system through an open wound? If you are in prolonged contact with an infected person, then yes. Yeah. The answer is yes. Yep. Are we all gonna get monkeypox like we all got COVID? Is it inevitable?
I did not get COVID. Hello.
One person. I think I know two people actually.
Well, you actually know, my daughter and my husband.
Oh, so maybe it's four.
You know, at least three of us right there.
That's pretty awesome.
I know.
I'm jealous. I did not escape.
But yeah, I don't think that we're all. I don't think we're all going to get monkeypox. Do you?
Yeah, the jury's out at the moment because we're still in the discovery phase. But we still need to kind of understand what monkeypox is going to do, how it's going to behave. So we're still in the early stages. But most experts at the moment are saying no, that it's not inevitable. We're not looking at another pandemic. But just like with any infectious disease, you need to know your risk. Remember the risk, benefits, and alternatives podcast that we did, and make sure that you protect yourself. So whatever you need to do to protect yourself is what you should do. Is hand sanitizer effective? Yes, it is. There's no other way to answer that. Is it helpful to wipe down your packages and groceries? I think that, like we said before, more helpful to wash your hands and sanitize your hands than it is to spray down your packages, I think.
Yep.
How is it treated? Right now, there is no specific treatment. There is post-exposure prophylaxis, which is a fancy word that is basically saying if you've been exposed to monkeypox, you can be eligible for a vaccine to try and prevent it. Amy, I would love for you to try to explain the science behind that. But before you do that, and there are some antiviral medications that have been used again for smallpox that can be used for monkeypox.
Yeah.
But this is for folks that have weaker immune systems and not just for everyone. So can you talk a little bit about post-exposure prophylaxis or?
Yeah, as far as like getting the vaccine after you've been exposed, there's not a lot, I think, to read out there, and there's not a lot of data on that I have found. I mean, we think of vaccines as being something that you do before to either prevent infection or to make the infection as weak, as short of duration and less severe as possible. I think what they're saying with getting the vaccine post-exposure is that you're trying to give your immune system a little bit of training with the vaccine, along with being exposed potentially to the virus that you've been exposed to. I don't know. I don't see any data that convinces me that that's going to prevent infection, because we usually need to have vaccines and immune system trained before exposure. I think this is something that we still have to learn a lot about. Like, maybe there is a window of time, like if you've been exposed to someone that has monkeypox and you were to get the vaccine within, a few days or 48 or 72 hours or something, maybe that can be helpful. But what I do know about reading about the vaccines like the Jynneos, that 2-dose series, is that they say that you need to have the 2 doses and several weeks out for it to be fully effective. So from my perspective, I don't know. I'm not sure how prophylactic or how beneficial that could be. Would it be harmful? I don't think so.
Right.
But is it going to prevent?
They're like, it doesn't hurt, so let's try.
Yeah, that's kind of,
if you can make it a little weaker, like you might actually get it, but maybe it'll manifest a little bit less.
Yeah.
We're kind of hoping. And we've done this with other infections where we do this vaccination after
like rabies.
Exposed.
Yeah.
That's right. And so it's not an unheard of practice.
No. Rabies is the one that people are probably the most familiar with. The other thing I would say along those lines is, I think part of the thinking is that if you've been exposed to or in contact with it, I think that the idea is that maybe that's your, where you live, who you're around, maybe the area that you're in, if there's higher levels or something. So maybe the thought is, you will likely get exposed to it again, so let's just get a vaccine on board. So that's, I think, maybe part of it, but I'm not 100%. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the way that I understand how we respond to viruses and to vaccines, it's hard to understand it.
No, I agree. I think I'm trying to come up with, like, all the different philosophical.
Yeah, sure. But like but the thing is that here at this point, we don't have evidence that it doesn't work. So let's try it.
Right. We don't have evidence that it doesn't, but we don't necessarily have evidence that it
does
super beneficial either.
Sure. So it's up, it's one of the things that are out there. Yeah. You can let it run its course and do symptomatic management, with pain relief.
Yeah.
And trying to stay isolated so you're not infecting everybody else around you and all of that stuff, because it is contagious in that respect.
Yep.
So I think those are all the questions. I told you, got slammed with a bunch of questions. I got They were juicy and good questions. We
Those
really
were good.
Yeah, these are great. So hopefully this helps answer some of your questions. Please go ahead and reach out to us and let us know if we made something unclear,
Yep.
made something clear. If you want some clarification on anything, we're happy to do it. We've been doing it all along for COVID, and we're happy to do it for anything else. And if there's anything that you want us to talk about, let us know. And we're open to doing it. We're gonna do polio next, I think.
Yeah, I think we're going to do polio virus next because it's been found in the wastewater in New York, which means it's out there. There was also a paralytic polio case in New York.
That's right. Actually, from one of the areas I grew up in, Rockland County.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was reading about that.
Yeah.
So that will be coming up in a couple of weeks.
That's right.
So send us your questions about polio. Send us questions about polio because we're going to be reading up on that and getting ready. So any questions you have, we'll add them to the list.
Add them to the list. All right, guys. Thanks so much for sticking with us.